Hello, everybody. Suzanne Kellner-Zinck from Dunning Vision's Hypnosis, and today I want to speak about something really close to my heart, and that has a lot to do with the fact that individuals who are diagnosed with mental illness are prescribed so many medications, more often than not over-medicated, and it becomes nearly impossible for them to be able to come off those medications, even if they have really bad side effects. I found this to be true for too many of my clients who have come to me just wanting to be, I don't know, healed, live a normal life, not have to deal with side effects of medication, that fuzzy thinking and the loss of, shall we say, normal feelings that so many of them complain about all the time. And sadly, this occurs because it's pushed onto psychologists to do that in the system. You may not realize this, but the diagnostic statistical manual that is used to diagnose mentally ill people with their mental illnesses started with slightly over 100, what they called at the time, categorizations. And now, with the last rendition, 5R, they have almost 300 categorizations. And the people who come up with these categorizations are members of the American Psychiatric Association. They split up the categories, and different members will write up the categories, and that becomes the checklist. There's absolutely no science to prove any of this stuff has anything to do with the reality. I can tell you from a lot of research that I did, my public policy medical sociology degree a few years back, that too often when drugs are involved, pharmaceutical companies will do whatever they need to do to show the results they want to show, to sell ever more drugs. And sadly, the journals publish this crap. Why? Because they make a lot of money by selling reprints of these articles to others. That's a fact. And sadly, when you look at how the insurance goes, when a patient goes to see a psychopharmaceutical practitioner, they get 15 minutes of their time. That's it. And I don't know what's happening these days. It's probably much of it's being done online instead of in person. But the point is, you can't learn anything about your patient in 15 minutes. There is no time for them to talk about what is going on with them, and for a practitioner to be able to think clearly through what needs to happen next. And often, too often, even with really bad side effects. I had one client years ago who came to me who couldn't even stand long enough to do her dishes because of neurological issues from one or more of the psychotropic, i.e. medications given for mental illness, that she was prescribed. And her psychiatrist would not help her come off it. She took herself off it very slowly, very carefully. It was done before she started working with me, so I had nothing to do with it one way or another. But it tells you something very significant about what is going on with too many patients. And I also see a lot of, shall we say, posts by patients who are saying the same thing, that they go and they ask their psychiatrist, whoever is prescribing the psychotropic medications, to lower the dose or take them off it, and it won't be done. because these medications screw with a person's brain, and they're wary of what might happen if they are absolutely titrated off the stuff. Not thinking about the fact that maybe perhaps they could give them less and see if that works better. But I'm here to say that none of this truly matters in the big picture if you're smart enough not to go on this crap in the first place. Because for the great majority of people, your subconscious mind knows what it needs in order to heal. This isn't true, sadly, for those who have psychotic symptoms. I can't help anyone with any of those, and antipsychotics help some of those folks. And for the mood disorder, I was on lithium for over a decade, and my kidneys did start slowing down, and my psychiatrist was smart enough to take me off that crap. And about a month later, Todd James helped me overcome the manic depression 100%. So I don't have those horrific mood swings any longer. It used to be depression for 6 months during the winter season in the fall, and then I'd be hypomanic, not manic, hypomanic, below mania, during the spring and summer. And that hasn't happened since I went through timeline therapy with Todd James and had it vanish. And yes, my psychiatrist did follow me for 10 months just to make sure I was okay. And she gave me her blessings because I was indeed okay. So I want you to understand something here. Our minds are the most powerful things that we have, but we're never taught how to use them well. Mainly, we're taught how to abuse them, based on the environments that we grew up in or the drugs that we're told we have to take that cause more problems than they help in too many cases. Now, I'm not saying that if it's helping you to not take your medication, that's obviously not what I'm saying here. If you find them helpful, great, stay with them. What I'm saying is that for the great majority of patients, they don't really need them because they can learn what was the underlying root cause of the problem and heal it from there. And I'm also here to say, and I say this often, very often, that some emotionally looking problems, depression, anxiety, OCD, etc., are not emotionally based at all. I've had clients who had metabolism issues. I had other ones who were in toxic apartments with toxic materials like mold and stuff that did some pretty weird stuff to them. I had one client who had psychotic breaks experienced because of an antidepressant she was on that didn't work with her system. And when she was finally discontinued from that medication, she went back to normal. And for those people who are put on these drugs and they don't need the drugs, all kinds of weird stuff can happen as well because they don't need them. And I have a situation with a client who was put on Prozac, which she had taken before she had done work with me, in that case for drug addiction. And we did work a little bit on getting rid of her depression. And the reality of the situation was we found out years later from an integrative doctor that she had a genetic mutation on both sides of her family that made it impossible for her to make dopamine, serotonin, and GABA. So he's been supplementing for her so she can now live without symptoms of depression. These are just a few cases. And that's another point. Folks who work with mental health need to understand the physiology of the body and learn what else can cause these problems and have people that they can refer their patients to for the appropriate testing. And the medical doctors need to understand more about the diagnosis of mental illness and how that works and not just prescribe antidepressants, usually SSRIs, which are the main cause for the mass shootings in America. I wrote an entire capstone paper on this for the same said degree that I talked about earlier. And they were all on one of those drugs or shortly had stopped taking it before the mass shooting happened. And we do have the black box warning on those particular medications that state that kids in their teens and in their 20s can have homicidal and suicidal thoughts when they're on those medications. So why would that be a great shock to anyone that that could happen? Hello, let's deal with reality, folks. In the description box, I wrote down where you could schedule a free video consult with me. I don't live in America, I live in Albania. It's much easier life here in so many ways. All the work is done online. And if you are a state licensed practitioner who'd like to learn how to integrate hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, I spent 18 months in a different master's program in instructional design and technology to develop said program, mainly aimed for the healing of anorexics and bulimics, but it can certainly be applied to people who have other issues as well. So that's what I have for you for today. I hope you found this helpful, got you to think a little deeper about what is going on with the system, and be grateful that RFK Jr. is finally in a position where he can do something about this and stop the legal drug pushing onto American citizens of these mind-altering and, after decades of being on it, toxic to people. It's just a reality. As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time. Bye-bye.